Hello everyone, Treecks here, and welcome to the next installment of Castlevania. Welcome to the fourth game, the very first game I ever played and the one that introduced me to the Castlevania series, Super Castlevania IV, on the SNES. Let's go take a look at the story. What are we dealing with this time around on this more modern system than the first three games? Ooh. I think something just escaped from that grave. Dracula. And he's gone. Every 100 years, the forces of good mysteriously start to weaken. And thus, the power of Dracula starts to revive itself. His power grows stronger and stronger every 100 years. Dracula has revived many times. However, his sinister actions have been constantly thwarted by the Belmont family. As you may remember from the first three games. It has been 100 years since the last confrontation between Dracula and the Belmont family. But now, the serenity of Transylvania is being threatened by destructive forces. On a dark and eerie night, Dracula rose from his grave to unleash his destructive power over the countryside. Once again, Simon Belmont is called upon to destroy Dracula. With only his whip and courage, he sets out to restore peace to Transylvania. Alright, that's what we're doing. Sounds familiar, right? The Belmont family taking on Dracula. This time around in the form of Simon Belmont again. Returning from the very first game. And the way this game is handled is pretty much also comparable to the very first game. Because unlike the Castlevania III, where we got split pathways and different characters to play as, Super Castlevania IV is a little bit more like the first game again, with linear pathway, just playing as Simon and nobody else. So all of all, you might say in gameplay it is a little bit of a degradation compared to what the third game brought. But still, it is still a pretty fun game. The fact that it actually resembles the first Castlevania game a little bit more is pretty much its strength, I feel. Especially in my situation, because don't forget, like I said, this is actually the first Castlevania game I ever played. The ones on the NES, the first three games, I actually played later. And therefore, this is my point of reference, you might say, when it comes to the series. But I definitely appreciate it. It has awesome graphics. It definitely makes use of the fact that the SNES can do more. A lot. Graphically, this game is beautiful. Gameplay-wise, this game is also amazing, because it actually expands our moveset for the first time, compared to what the first game brought. So even though it's a little bit less noteworthy than parts 2 and 3, when it comes to the successors of the original Castlevania, it is still a game that is very appreciable. And luckily it's also a lot easier, so probably not as much frustration, but let's not cheer too soon for that. We'll see how it goes. Castlevania IV has begun. We've seen the gravestone getting destroyed enough times by now, so let's go enter the main menu, which is pretty simple in all honesty. Oh, and don't wait too long, because the opening cutscene will play again. We have a start option, a continue option, and an option. Hell yeah for word puns. In the options we can actually see we can change around the button layout. Our jump button, our whip button, our trusty weapon, and our sub item. We can actually change around which buttons use them. I like the default setting. And other than that, there's a couple of sound options. Most notably, a sound test being present in this game. We can actually listen to the background music in this game from the menu. And of course the sound effects as well. Always awesome when games do that. I think every single game that ever gets released should have this option in it. Always think it's an awesome option if you can just listen to the sounds and the music from the menu. Enough introduction. Let's go stop Dracula for a 4th time. Stupid opening cutscene. Let's try that again. Okay, let's input our name, which is always very fun to do in a Castlevania game, because of the amazing medieval font you always get with it. Ooh, the name Treecks never looked that awesome before. Awesome. Welcome back to Castlevania, Simon. But first you need to reach it. Dracula is once again your enemy. Simon returns with his whip. Use it with Y button in all angles this time around. And we can even hold the Y button in this game to actually hold our whip out, so we can actually play around with it like this. Definitely my favorite move in this game, going to be honest already. You can also do it while crouched, of course, by holding down on the D-pad. Besides that, nothing really changes in the controls. Castlevania may be on the SNES now, but it is still pretty much the same as the first game. We break open the candles in order to get some weapons, like the sub-weapons for instance, the throwing knives, which also return from the first game. Do remember, they still cost hearts. At the top right, as you can see over here, we have 7 hearts currently. Those you can collect throughout the stages as well, and those are basically your ammo for the sub-weapons. Ooh, and the drawbridge goes up. Can't resist. Can't resist. Ooh, Simon, hang on. Okay, let's just go. Okay, interesting. I think Konami realized that they actually had more processing power to work with, so they definitely went all out in this game. Can already give that away. There's a lot of these graphical play-arounds in this game. But it definitely helps with this game. Puts the atmosphere in this game very well. Oh, I love this music. Let's not get distracted too much by it. As you can see, there's a couple of things in the background. And that is because this game actually pulls a Super Mario World in this stage, as you can see. Sometimes you will find doors, which you can use in order to get behind the gate here. And therefore all of the stuff in the background is now accessible, and everything in front no longer hinders us. Pretty interesting, like over here. In front, there's a hole, but not on the backside, so we use the backside in order to cross this. Interesting. Just like Iggy's castle from Super Mario World. Okay, point bags also return, obviously. Don't really have to explain those. Get enough points in order to score yourself an extra life. Still works the same. Oh, that was meat. Currently did nothing, because I had full health. But just remember, pieces of meat will heal you. Small ones only a couple of bars. And the big ones will heal a quarter of your health bar. Just like in the first couple of games. That is also not changed. Okay, I'm not too sure what that was. Probably a cross. And therefore the screen nuke also returning. Pick that up in order to empty the screen of enemies. Now these guys also return. Oh, speaking of cross. It also returns as a sub-weapon, of course. This little baby, the boomerang of the Castlevania games. Very powerful, but tricky to use. Now, next sub-weapon, also returning from earlier games, the axe. The sub-weapon we can throw in an arch, and therefore reaching higher up enemies. Yeah, it's precisely like I said, this game, even though it looks better, because of it being on the SNES, it still pretty much feels like the first Castlevania game. And definitely for me, because for me it was the first Castlevania game. Still really love this game, can't emphasize that enough. Ow! Okay, that was my first hit. Don't really have to explain the health bar. Speaks for itself. It also works precisely the same like in the first 3 games. Let's tickle you. That's what I always call this. Holding my whip out in order to destroy enemies that way I always call tickling. Get used to that term. I always love tickling enemies to death in this game. Let's just move on up here. Remember, like in other Castlevania games, it could be hiding stuff in the wall. Most of all health. But sometimes also item multipliers. Oh, hello. New mechanic. If we grab this with our whip, we can actually swing around. Awesome. Even though the game looks like Castlevania 1, it still has new mechanics. We can even press the D-pad in order to shorten or lengthen our swing. But do be careful, you can go through the floor here, as you can see. So you can also kill yourself with this. Just make sure to keep yourself safe. Oh, thank you for the health. Let's go tickle you. Let's head down. That should be the end of stage 1-2. No, not quite. Still goes on a little bit more. Let's make sure not to get arched by these skelly-mans. Bam! Double kill! Not hiding something from me here? Oh, yes, they are hiding something from me. Item multiplier in this case. Remember those things from the first Castlevania game? With this, we can actually have 2 sub-items on screen at the same time. Because normally you can only use the sub-item again the moment the first one has disappeared again. But with item multipliers or even triplers, you can actually surpass that rule and use more than one on screen. Especially practical in boss fights. And this was the final room of 1-2. Yeah, because now we're at block 1-3. Back outside again. Oh, next sub-item. Also, not a new one, but still. Holy water. Throw it in front of you. And make sure enemies don't land on top of you. Stupid things. But indeed, holy water. Throw it in front of you. And it will burn, hurting enemies that touch it. Especially handy to use against enemies you have to go up close and personal with. Then it's definitely the most effective. That was one well-camouflaged horse head. Holy water. You guys are close to the floor, so... Awesome. Don't. Seen enough of you guys. This actually does look like to be a horse stable, so... I do think there's undead horses here. Just a couple of hearts in the wall, nothing too important. No, these guys respawn again. Oh, help. Go away. It is clear, even though the game does have more memory because of being a 16-bit system, the way enemies respawn still works the same, as you can see. Leave the screen and everything returns in its full glory. Oh, cool background actually. You can actually see some animals in the background. It's the beauty of this game. And what's not so beautiful is Medusa heads. Infinitely spawning. And they can come from both directions, obviously. Be careful for these things. They're a little bit less recognizable as in the NES games, but they're still flipping platforms. The moment you jump on them, they will flip, and if you're standing on them, they will flip you in an endless pit. So, just saying, these things also return. Can't heal myself fully, unfortunately. So the upcoming boss, I need to be careful for. Knife. Oh, completely forgot to talk about the stopwatch, but you know what the stopwatch is. I just noticed I actually had the stopwatch. Too many things to talk about at the same time. It freezes enemies the moment you activate it for a short time. We've seen it in other games, so you can imagine what it does here. And that sound that you're currently hearing is not very joyful, because it means my time is almost up. And we still have a boss fight to do. That's not going to end well. At least we're going to see him for the first time. Skeleton guy on a skeleton animal. But still. 3, 2, 1... And we're gone. Awesome. First time to die in a project being because of the time running out. The Let's Play pace and therefore explaining things apparently took a little bit too long. Can't remember that ever happening before. Oh, at least you can hear the beautiful music again. Let's tickle you. And you. Tickle, tickle. Oh, Konami. You guys are brilliant for actually coming up with that mechanic. So, let's go try doing this again. This time seriously, because unlike last time, this time, because of our time, we should be able to actually beat the boss. Let's just kill this thing. Not too sure what it is supposed to be. I think a dead horse, but still. Does not really look like a horse skeleton to me. But anyway, it is gone, so let's take on the Skelly Man himself. Who's really easy, obviously. He's only the first boss, so easy moveset. On his final hit he will reform, but still easily tickled to death. And like always, we collect an orb to finish the stage officially. All of your time remaining gets added to your score, just like your hearts, and you move on to the next stage. After the introduction, we're crawling closer and closer to Castlevania. Let's move through the woods and across the river. And that is what we're doing second. And we still have some time in the video. We're only at 60 minutes, I see. Let's move on. Do the first couple of blocks in stage 2. I don't think I'm going to be able to actually finish off the entire thing, but I'll just do a couple of blocks and wait until I get to 20 minutes. And then I'll pause the game and call it a day. Hey, let go of me, stupid hands. Go play with these other dudes that are also living on the ground. I'd like to stay above the ground if you don't mind. I have a job to do. The spiders also return. And let's head subterranean. Yeah, in Castlevania 3 we actually have some screen scrolling present, as you can see. The build-up of the stages is a lot more complicated than we saw in the first 3 games. Let's see if we can actually tickle you guys. Yeah, if it isn't obvious, tickling, like I always call it, is a fun way to actually kill enemies and also a reliable way. But do remember it actually does less damage than a normal whip slash. As you can see, that way these guys die in 2 hits, and whenever I start tickling them, they actually require a lot more time. So, even though it is fun to use, do keep in mind it's a little bit weaker than a normal whip slash. And therefore, for practical reasons, it's better to still use a whip slash sometimes. Ooh, look what we have here in the background. Looks like our destination. But we're not quite there yet. Obviously, we need some more work for that. Oh, what the hell are you? Well, at least you make a funny sound the moment you die. Uh-oh. Didn't see you coming, sir. No, help. Let's just move to the next screen. Stage 2-2 we are at now. Some sort of swampy-like area. Be careful not to fall in here. Simon can't swim. At least not very well. Crows also reappear in this game, even with an extra effect. You actually see their feathers falling the moment you kill them. Oh, SNES graphics. Why are you so beautiful? No, frog. Nothing too spectacular, but still. In potential, it is possible he hurts you. Let's get the candle down here. Should be able to actually get into the water quickly. Because Simon can't swim. He can still jump out if you're quick enough. Like this. And now, let's not forget about the stopwatch this time around. As you can see, everything stops. And the sound is also an indication of the fact that it is active. Only lasts for a couple of seconds, so do be quick. Whatever you have planned to do with it. Cross. And something hidden in the wall. Meat. Full health, thank you. Oh, it would have been so fun if I actually was able to make a no-death run out of this game, but we all know what happened at the end of stage 1. Timer problem. So, unfortunately, it is already out of the window. Not really in the way you would expect your first death to be. Always fun whenever things like that happen. But at least I could still try to actually beat this game without ever running out of health. Or falling into endless pits. The traditional ways to die. That I could still try. I have 4 extra lives now, so don't really have to game over myself at the beginning of the stage. That's also something that does not help me at this moment. Okay, boss time. It's not the final boss of the stage. It actually goes on a little bit longer, but we have a little bit of a sub-boss, you might say. It looks like to be the successor to Medusa. Some snake-human hybrids with snakes for hair and even snakes as ammo. Oh, if only Snake Man from Mega Man 3 were here to have a word with you. Best way to take care of the snakes is just by staying crouched. Downside is if you're crouched you can't really run away from the boss, so makes it kinda tricky. And let's move on to the river section of the stage. Oh, grab your hand, help! Help! Okay, this sounds like a good point to actually call it. Thank you for watching the introduction and the beginning of Castlevania IV. Next time we'll continue. And Treecks out. See you folks later.